Yeah. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Call this meeting to order. Regular council meeting, June 10th. First thing on the agenda is always our agenda. I get a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Reid.
I'll move the agenda as presented. Sorry, I was waiting for the red light.
Yeah, no, you're all good. Seeing no questions, call the question. All those in favor? That passes, thank you. And adoption of the previous minutes. Councillor Flowers.
I will move to adopt all three sets of minutes, May 27th, the May 31st, and May 24th.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Moving right along, no delegations tonight. We do have a couple of bylaws. Bylaw 17/2023, 5A. Councillor Nagel, over to you.
Yeah, just before we dive into this one, I wanted to flag that I missed the public hearing. I was away at that meeting, so I'm going to excuse myself. And if someone could let me back into the meeting, once you guys are done, it'd be appreciated. Thanks.
We will let you know.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This presentation is for Council's consideration of third reading for Bylaw 17/2023, being the Rolling Trails Area Redevelopment Plan. Council granted second reading to the draft Rolling Trails ARP back on February 12th, 2024. Following second reading, the draft ARP was sent to the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board, or CMRB, for their review and approval. Following Council's granting of second reading, but prior to the submission to the CMRB, 4 additional maps were added to the draft ARP. Inclusion of these maps is a requirement of the CMRB, and they simply show rolling trails in relation to regional transportation, servicing, and utility corridors. No text or policy was changed in the draft plan. These maps are on page 72 and 76 of the draft ARP attached to Council's report for tonight. On May 22nd, the town received notification of CMRB's approval of the Rolling Trails ARP. This means we are now back before Council requesting third reading of this amended version of the Bylaw 17/2023. As CMRB has granted their approval, no changes may be made to the plan prior to adoption. If changes were made, amended plans would have to go back through the CMRB process, which is about a 3 to 4 month review period. Rolling Trails ARP area is located in the southwestern portion of Cochrane, between the western town boundary and Highway 22. It encompasses the existing Rolling Range Estates and Tower Trail communities equaling approximately 355 acres. The plan area was annexed into the town in 2004 as part of a large-scale annexation to facilitate future growth. It is made up of 43 existing parcels, primarily acreages with a range of approximately 2.5 to 20 acres in size. All of the existing acreages were created through subdivisions granted by Rocky View County prior to the 2004 annexation into the town. In this case, there is a developer who has interest in a few of the parcels within the plan area and acreage residents who maintain ownership of the remaining parcels. Administration required the applicants to include all of Tower Trails and Rolling Range Estates in the ARP area, as neither area had high-level planning completed for it, and we wanted to ensure a comprehensive development could occur. Looking at policy guidance for the area, the town's current municipal development plan has policy specific to these lands. The MDP identifies these lands as Area C, and 8.4.1.1 states that Area C shall be comprehensively designed residential community with commercial and industrial uses in proximity to Highway 22. Current zoning of the majority of the lands, as shown in blue, is urban holdings. The exception to this is the existing town MR parcel as parks and recreation. Under the urban holding district, the minimum parcel size as it was at the time of bylaw adoptions, meaning that rezoning or subdivisions have not been permitted until such time that an area redevelopment plan is completed for the lands. This has been the policy followed since the annexation into the lands into town in 2004, and would continue if no higher level policy documents are provided, or sorry, are approved for the plan area. The land use concept in the ARP includes higher density development above 8 UPA on the east side of the community adjacent to Highway 22, shown in orange. Lower density residential under 8 UPA on the west side of the community, shown in yellow. A mixed use commercial site at the entrance to the community, shown in red, and a flex zone that could be residential or commercial depending on the needs of the community when the parcel is to be developed, shown in purple. Overall, when combined, the neighborhood densities would hit the proposed target of 8 UPA. At 8 UPA, this would mean approximately 2,600 homes with a proposed population of approximately 6,800 people. The plan proposes to utilize the location of existing road infrastructure within and adjacent to the planned area, with upgrades being completed as required. The existing access to Rolling Range Drive off Highway 22 is proposed to remain. However, it will be upgraded to a signalized future 4-leg intersection, which will provide access into lands to the east, and River Heights Drive to provide a transportation benefit to South Cochrane by reducing pressure off of Fireside and James Walker Trail intersection. The upgrades to this intersection would take place in the first phase of development. The existing Rolling Range Estates, Rolling Range Drive, and Towers Trail would all be upgraded as necessary to support the development. A connection is proposed into Fireside to the south, and an additional conceptual spine road to the north is proposed in the plan that would connect to Tower Trail. The alignment of this road could change as detailed designs occurred and timing of future development is more known. All the details and road cross sections for these upgrades will form part of the requirements for the neighborhood plan. Pedestrian connectivity also proposes to extend existing connections to adjacent lands. Pathway connections are proposed to extend from east and west sides of Fireside to the north. The connection on the east would connect to future pathway locations across Highway 22, which would eventually connect to the river pathways through future redevelopment, or to the west through the community along Rolling Range Drive. The connection on the west would continue north along Tower Trail to connect to George Fox Trail. Additional connections would be made through the community along sidewalks, utility rights-of-way, and potential additional pathway connections determined through the neighborhood plan. There are levels of support amongst the plan area landowners. Some area landowners are in support of the plan moving forward. Others are interested in seeing what happens, what the plan may mean for their lands, and others are not in favor of the planned ARP proceeding and would prefer the acreages remain as they are. While there are mixed levels of support for the ARP amongst plan area landowners, currently the town does not have any policy regarding the number of landowners that must be in support of a plan for it to proceed. Review of the written and oral submissions have shown that the levels of support and opposition to the ARP were relatively similar, but majority were in the support of the plan proceeding. The plan has built-in policy that allows for landowners who are not in favor of developing to continue residing on their acreages. It must be made clear that each landowner has ultimate control over whether or not their lands are developed and what they choose to do with their own lands. Should a landowner not wish to develop their lands, if the ARP is adopted, they will not be made to. It will be their choice if they choose to participate in the neighborhood plan process, if they choose to change their land use on their land, and so on. It is proposed that should a landowner not want to develop and not want to participate in the development of the neighborhood plan, their lands can be shadow planned. Showing how the lands could conceivably be developed by identifying the possible location of uses, streets, services, and open space. The plan proposes this in order to ensure that we do not encounter piecemeal development that excludes development to adjacent lands in the future should they choose not to develop at this time. We have seen recent examples of this occurring in the town, and we would like to actively avoid the situation here. Should that landowner later choose to develop their lands, servicing and roads will be able to be brought forward to their boundaries. Proposed development is expected, and a neighborhood plan amendment would be required to define the plans for that land. It also must be made clear that a shadow plan is not set in stone. Should a landowner come forward and want to make changes to a shadow plan, they will be able to, provided it works with the road and servicing connections provided to that land. The list of benefits of approving an ARP include, or approving this ARP include, overall enhanced connectivity, developer investment into infrastructure upgrades at Highway 22, Rolling Range Drive intersections, Tower Trail, Rolling Range Drive, and Rolling Range Estates. Provisions of pedestrian and transit connections that allow more areas of the town to be connected. Provisions of a variety of housing types, senior housing, rental products, etc. Provides opportunity and allows residents to make choices on their lands. If ARP is not approved, no further subdivisions will be supported. Certainty for the future of the lands. Currently, we have a developer willing to lead the process. This may not always be the case. Provisions of a developed open space in an area of town that is considered as needing attention in the open space master plan. Advances in land development, slowing the need for future annexation. The growth study currently underway identifies that Cochrane could run out of developable land between 2036 and 2041. Advances the goal of Cochrane's sustainability plan and the municipal development plan. Under Cochrane's sustainability plan, by 2059, the density within the 2009 footprint of Cochrane is to increase by 25%, and these lands were identified for future development within the MVP. Allows future neighborhood plans and development to be evaluated under the lens of Envision Cochrane 2050. Should Envision Cochrane 2050 be adopted prior to the first neighborhood plan coming forward. Tonight, we are asking council to make a determination on only third reading, as the CMRB has now approved the ARP. Following the adoption of the ARP, the next steps prior to any development being approved would be drafting and adoption of a neighborhood plan. With that, the recommended action would be that council give third reading to Bylaw 17, 2023. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Council, a little bit different process than what we generally do, sending off to CMRB between second and third reading. I think this is our first time doing this. So here we are, back for third reading. Councillor Flowers.
Yes, I'll make the motion that council gives third reading to Bylaw 17, 2023. It's unfortunate that some people are going to be very sad about this and not everyone's on board, but I feel bad for the ones that have been waiting 20 years too to make this happen, so I think it's time. One of my questions was around the wetlands. I think the report said they were saving 2 or 3 wetlands. Is there anything we can do to protect those to make sure they don't get ruined like happened in the Willows?
Through the chair, Councillor Flowers, thank you for the question. I think these are opportunities that we can investigate as we move forward to the process at a neighborhood plan phase. As the report highlighted, Due to the fractional ownership of the area, there were challenges in accessing some properties. So additional, more detailed environmental studies is intended to happen at neighborhood plan phases in the future. But definitely things that we can look at and ensure alignment with our existing policy and any future policy that's in place at the time of that application.
I see. I think that was the only question I had. Oh, there was something about collecting an additional 5 acres for park space. Was that already into the plan?
Through the Chair of Council Flowers, I think majority of the municipal reserve has been collected. It was collected historically prior to annexation into the town, so there is not a significant component of reserve dedication owing to the town at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McFadden?
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I'll be voting against third reading to Bylaw 17/2023. I listened with great interest to the public hearing and to the diversity of views, and certainly that weighed on my thought process and listening to the different mixed levels of support. But at the end of the day, for me, we don't need another neighborhood of residentially focused developments at this point. We've got, by my count, 8 to 10 neighborhoods currently under development. And for the last number of years, I've been advocating for a more sequential development approval process, whereby we would actually complete some of these developments before we move forward with adopting any new developments. So I'll be voting against this.
Councillor Federico?
Thanks for the presentation. I will also be voting against this, as I mentioned at the second reading. I don't want to see a fragmented community, and I think there were a number of people that spoke about that, and whether or not you have a shadow plan or not, I think that it will still remain fragmented in my mind. I think that we have lots of areas that we can still develop, and also I think that we have a lot of issues that we need to address, including education, including healthcare, that I want to get a handle on before I start approving any sort of new community to pop up. So while I'm not necessarily against, and I appreciate all the information that has come forward from the planners, it's just not my toolbox right now of what I want to approve.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, I'm voting in favor of it, and I recognize that there are mixed emotions and it's a sensitive issue, and I believe that the right decision, and in fact, the right decision is that we move forward. And there have been members of the community that asked why we hadn't done this earlier, and it was because that there wasn't the opportunity to be able to do so, and that this development has allowed for that. I think this is responsible land management on behalf of the town, and I'm kind of surprised that my colleagues would see otherwise, but they're welcome to their opinion, but I'm in support of it.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. Because this community is essentially a very slow-moving shadow infill of current town lands and existing nearby servicing, I expect rolling trails to be highly financially prudent long-term and therefore a benefit to all current Cochrane residents. I was also relatively pleased with the autonomy the plan left individual current residents within the Rolling Range community, to my mind, and that's why I voted for it in the second reading portion of this, and for the third reading I will also be continuing to vote for it. This may be the first ASP I've actually supported on my time in council, I believe it is, and I'm happy to continue to do so tonight.
Yeah, I'll be voting in favor as well for a lot of the same reasons that colleagues that are voting in favor of it shared. For me, it goes down to, like you said, Councillor Reid, responsible planning. I think we need to know what these lands are going to be in the future. It sets us up financially for infrastructure investments that we need to make, so we're not caught off guard down the road, and we know where to put the road when we're down there. So, yeah, I don't think there's much more to add after that, but see anyone else? Any other questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. We'll grab Councillor Nagel. Thank you. Five B on our agenda is Bylaw 19, 2024 Greystone Phase 10 Land Use Amendment. Welcome back. Ms. Anacarrico.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. This evening, I am here to present Bylaw 19, 2024 for consideration of second and third reading, which is a land use bylaw amendment in Greystone Phase 10. Again, this application is for a land use bylaw amendment, which is highlighted on the planning hierarchy here. Land use amendments are informed by all of the policy documents above them, including area structure and neighborhood plans, and will go on to impact decisions at the subdivision, development permit, and building permit stages. Greystone Phase 10 is located at the north end of the community, with lands adjacent to the Spray Lake Sawmill storage yard. This is the final phase in the neighborhood plan area to receive land use and will facilitate completion of the community when subdivision and development occurs. This is the land use map from the Greystone Area C neighborhood plan, which shows these lands as low density, mixed density, and park space. The land use amendment proposed through this application exactly follows the neighborhood plan, with 9.6 acres of low density provided to the north, 5.55 acres of mixed density in the center of the plan area, and 2 neighborhood parks totaling 2.82 acres. This slide provides an overview of all of the allowable uses within each of the proposed districts. The low-density district is intended for single detached housing with supporting commercial uses. The residential mixed district allows for single detached, semi-detached, and multi-unit dwellings up to 8 units as a discretionary use. And the Parks and Recreation District is intended for park space with opportunity for some supporting discretionary uses. The application was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for comment, and no concerns were received. There were 2 notice of application signs posted to inform the surrounding communities of the proposal, and the application was subject to a required public hearing, through which no concerns were received from the public. If this amendment receives second and third reading, the land use bylaw will be amended with the updated zoning, and the lands will then require subdivision, development permit, and building permit approvals where required. Administration recommends that Council give second and third reading to Bylaw 19, 2024. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to welcome any questions and have Rob Auclair, our Manager of Planning and Director of Community Services, Mark Krasinski, here to assist in answering questions as well.
All right, thank you for your presentation and full panel at the ready. Councillor Reid.
I'll move second reading of Bylaw 19, 2024.
Okay, Council, any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries. Councillor Reid, do you want to carry on with third?
That's okay. I'll move on to third reading then of Bylaw 19, 2024.
All those in favor of that motion? Also approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
5C, Bylaw 20, 2024 Assessment Review Board. We've seen this a couple times. Ms. Knight, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. As we have brought this before you at both Committee of the Whole and at a previous Council meeting for first reading, and we're bringing back Bylaw 20, 2024 for Council's consideration of second and third reading this evening. It is an updated version of our Assessment Review Board bylaw with changes that Council had asked for at previous settings where you have seen this, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but I believe we have reviewed this a couple of times, so hoping Council will provide second and third for this bylaw so it can be implemented.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Council, we've seen this a couple times. Looking for second reading tonight. Councillor McFadden?
I will move second reading to Bylaw 2020-24. A lot of 20s in there. I just have a question in regards to the remuneration for the participants. Is the remuneration, is that in line with what other municipalities are providing?
Yes, it is.
Their reps as well? Okay. I was getting quizzed by some colleagues about that, and I said I would ask, so thank you.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor McFadden. As Mr. Hawken was drafting the revisions to this bylaw, he reached out to several communities and aligned this with what is considered best practices for other communities.
Is that, our standard comparisons, Airdrie?
Airdrie, Leduc, Fort Saskatchewan. I'm
Okotoks.
trying to rack my brain in this moment. I believe there's about 5 municipalities that we normally look at in that space.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, second reading on the floor. Councillor Reid?
No surprise to my colleagues, I'm going to be voting against this. And the reason I'm voting against it is I think we have more than appropriately qualified volunteers in our committee who already exist, that this and the next bylaw have not been an issue in terms of being able to find good people to fulfill these positions. But the one question I did have is, does it set a precedent for other volunteer boards or committees? In that we'll be paying people to sit on this or the Subdivision Appeal Board?
Through the chair to Councillor Reid, I think I can tell you, Assessment Review Board has been remunerated since 2009, since the new legislation and regulations came into effect and the original bylaw was brought into effect with the town. The difference between this one and the SDAB bylaw that follows this tonight and all of our other committees is these are quasi-judicial in nature. So appeals to these boards go to the courts. They also there's a great amount of training and certification required for all of the members that are on these boards and serve on these boards, both this and the Subdivision Development Appeal Board. And so paying these folks to come in is standard across most municipalities in Alberta at this present time because of the weight, I think, of what's happening in these spaces.
So just to be clear, so I appreciate that people should be paid for their time if they're doing training, but if they're volunteering for a committee, then that's something different. But we're saying this is not a volunteer committee anymore.
It remains a volunteer committee in that you apply for it through the same channel you apply for all of the other committees of council,
Right.
but it is a quasi-judicial board, and that makes it very different from any of the other standing committees that council has.
So you're not worried that other volunteers might think that they should be appropriately paid for their time?
I am not.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McFadden, back to you.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to get the clarity. And I think always for me, the semi-judicial nature of the work has always been a key element as a differentiator. But you're saying we've been paying members for both committees since 2009?
We've been paying for the Assessment Review Board since 2009. The Subdivision Development Appeal Board, which is the report that follows this one, was not a standalone board at the time. It was created as part of the procedural bylaw. And so when the new regulations came in and the new certifications requirement came in, we'd intended to have that set up at this time, but just capacity didn't allow us to bring that standalone bylaw forward.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, if we voted against remuneration, we'd actually be taking away.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So we wouldn't want to do that to folks that have been contributing and helping us out for sure. And I know there are a lot of different committees that are set up this way, but certainly just the semi-judicial nature of it and the facts these folks have to be prepared to bring that lens and that skill set to it, I've always valued. So this certainly has my support. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other discussion. Call the question on second reading. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, that carries. We need third reading. Councillor McFadden, do you want to carry on? Yep. I will call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? And that carries. All right, 5D, similar bylaw, Subdivision and Development Appeal Board, Bylaw 21, 2024.
Evening again, Council. Before you in your package is Bylaw 2021, or 2024 for the Subdivision Development Appeal Board bylaw. As I just mentioned, this is a bylaw we've been intending to bring for a while. Given the new requirements under the MGA for the same certification, it has the same quasi-judicial nature as the Assessment Review Board bylaw, and this aligns it with the provisions within the Act and creates that standalone board for the town of Cochrane. As I said, we have brought this forward to you to the Committee of the Whole and for first reading, and tonight we are requesting second and third reading from Council. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, second reading. Councillor Wilson, thank you.
I'm not sure that I'm what you're seeking, because I'm not ready to move option one on this one. I seem to agree with Councillor Reid on this topic, simply because this is setting a precedent where we're now including remuneration for a committee that didn't have it previously. Unlike the Assessment Review Board before, I have a marginal opinion where I only marginally feel that we might be making a mistake here, and we didn't on the last one. One question to the presenter would be, is Cochrane Planning Commission not the next step along this, if this is approved, for compensating our members? Or is it not very similar to the SDAB?
Administratively, I don't believe it would be, just because Cochrane Planning Commission, although in its role as a development authority, it doesn't have the same quasi-judicial nature as this board.
I guess I've put myself in an awkward spot weighing in first, but I suppose I'll move option 2, and that's that I don't support compensating the members of SDAB at this time. I agree with Councillor Reid that we do have a lot of qualified volunteers. I've served on the board myself. I know quite a bit about it, and I don't quite see the need at this time, but I don't feel that strongly either. So if I'm outvoted, so be it on this one.
Okay, that's not really a motion though, Councillor Wilson. Could leave it to someone else or put?
I'm happy to leave it to somebody else.
Okay, all right.
Next person.
If I may address Councillor Wilson's concern, what we've done with this bylaw is align this with what is happening, again, best practices within municipalities across the province. So for the quasi-judicial boards, this type of compensation is being offered across the board. And so that's the lead we were taking when we drafted this bylaw, and certainly needed to get a bylaw of this nature in front of council so that we have a standalone SDAB bylaw, which again, should have been put in place a few years ago, but just didn't have the capacity to do so at that time.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Councillor Federico?
For right now, I'm gonna move option 1, the recommended action. Everybody can have a choice to vote against it if not. I'm just curious as to how many communities in Alberta, kind of like-sized compared to us, actually have paid committees that are not only from a council perspective, but also from a volunteer perspective. Are we kind of one of the only ones that are just kind of volunteering our time versus council member as well as volunteers?
Through the mayor to Councillor Federico, I'd say what's happening in most communities is council themselves have per diem rates to attend council meetings or to attend committee meetings. We are probably one of the only communities our size that do not have that for council members. Most communities are not paying their volunteer boards outside of these two for their time, but most council members are receiving remuneration.
Thanks. I think that we should remain kind of on par with what other communities are doing for volunteers. I certainly am not looking to enact some sort of remuneration for council members at all. I am happy to always volunteer on the number of boards that I have, but I think that if we're wanting to kind of remain in par with the rest of Alberta, I think that we should vote this through. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get any less knowledgeable or qualified board members. I think it just shows that we appreciate their time. And I imagine that over time, I think all committees will probably move this way. So it's better to be on par than struggle to get there, in 2 to 3 years or more.
Thank you, Councillor Federico. Councillor Reid?
Yeah, I'm going to be voting against it, as I suggested earlier. I'm just curious in terms of the volunteer appreciation night. Would these people be invited to that?
Yes, they would.
So they're being paid and being recognized as volunteers in that sense?
Yes, they would.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really against this.
Anyone else? No? Thank you for the comments. I'll be voting in favor of this. I think it's for a lot of the reasons that Councillor Federico outlined. I just think the quasi-judicial nature of this board, I think we should be reflective of the amount of work and effort that goes into it. I think it's it is a step in a different direction. I'm not worried about it seeping into CPC. In fact, I think we control that, if I'm not mistaken. You would be back here with another bylaw for remuneration, so the buck literally does stop here on this. It's not a lot of money. It's more of a gesture, I think, than anything. In 2023, we would have paid, if I'm reading the report correctly, $1,400 total for all of one hearing that happened. 2022, yes, a spike there, 12,000. But I would say the average in there is 7-ish. So I just think it's more, I'm in favor of moving in this direction. I just think it's the right move, and I appreciate the bylaw as it's written. That said, I don't see any other indicators on. I will call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? That carries. We need a third reading. Councillor Fedeko, do you wish to carry on? Okay, thank you. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? That also carries.
Thank you.
Okay. That takes us to the end of our bylaw section. Moving into business. The business of public engagement. 6A is the public engagement policy. Good evening, Ms. Hubrecht.
Good evening, Mayor Janung and members of council. I'm pleased to be back here with you tonight, seeking council adoption of the updated draft public engagement policy. The current policy was last updated in 2018, and the updated draft policy was presented to council for feedback and consideration last week on June 3rd. Administration is seeking council adoption of the public engagement policy 1106-04 as presented in your agenda package.
All right. Oops, sorry, I had the wrong page here. Council looking for endorsement of the public engagement policy. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I would move the adoption of the public engagement policy 1106-04. If I could just speak to it, I like and I think public should be aware that council or the administration and then council is moving through its bylaws in terms of being updating them, and this is clearly an updation in terms of that. But what I like about it is the clarity it provides in terms of language and direction, and I think it really moves us forward in terms of being able to be involved in public engagement, which I think all of us recognize is critical in terms of our role. So I'm happy to support this.
All right, thank you. Over to you, Councillor Fedeko.
Thank you. I was curious as to if there was any mention of us bringing back the community association kind of section, as well as, council having some sort of something written in this bylaw that actually directs council to have some sort of formal public engagement together as a total group. Is there anything in this that I think came out of suggestions from some of our conversation?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Fedeko. I think that would be more formally addressed through the framework development, which is, again, more of an internal document, so nothing in the policy that speaks directly to that.
Okay, and the only other comment I wanted to make is that I know last time I asked for some definition clarity, and I did find some of those within not only the code of conduct, but the procedure bylaw, which states that administration means administrative and the operational arm of the municipality. So I just wanted to put it out there because I actually found it in our own documents.
Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that we continue to evolve and improve on our public engagement, which I always appreciate. Can you just refresh my memory? What's the timeline for the public the framework to be developed?
So the framework is drafted. It will be brought forward to our senior leadership team for their consideration, hopefully in the next couple of months for sure.
And so will council get a look at that or no?
I'm not sure of that process quite yet, Councillor McFadden, but I will speak to my senior leadership team and confirm.
Yeah, because it is an area that's always long been a vital importance to myself and a passion as well. And I think it would be very important that council be able to have a lens on that and provide some feedback as well. So I'm not too sure if any of my colleagues want to provide some direction or support for that, more than just me and Marnie. I'm really quiet. And then I do like also that I think maybe more of our policies should have this that's going to be reviewed every 4 years, and we might need to just kind of put that tag on all of our policies about when they should be reviewed. But as it stands, this does have my support. So thank you very much.
Councillor Flowers.
Just one question about 3.1.2 that says that council is responsible to make sure there's enough resources to make all this happen. Do you see that there's going to be a lot more resources needed with the changes that have been made?
We are not seeking additional resources for public engagement at this time, no.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that exhausts the commentary portion. Councillor Reid, I think you put the motion on the floor. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Approved. Thank you. No finance. We have a notice of motion on the docket. Councillor Reid, this is generated from your desk.
Yeah, I just wanted to put forth a notice of motion that council look to establish a natural environment protection task force. Council has identified in its strategic plan the need to be stewards of the resources, natural resources that we've been blessed with within our boundaries. And so this is proposing that we recognize that and put a group of, a task force together to be able to consider some of the things that we might do in terms of being able to move this agenda forward. And to be clear, it's not to deal with the current park structure, but rather the other amenities that we have within our community. And so, yes, this is a notice of motion I'm putting forward to council.
Okay, Councillor McFadden, question?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly support the idea. And I mean, as much as there's opportunities within the MDP work and the long-range planning work to do this, I can certainly support this. I would like to see if there's any consideration to be adding a representative of the Cochrane Environmental Action Committee to this. I mean, that organization has spent, I've lost track, probably 20, 25 years focused on this, and I think it would certainly honor their ongoing work and the knowledge they bring by adding them to the task force.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would make your numbers even. So if you would take an amendment to reach out to SEAC for a representative and then perhaps have 4 members at large, you then have a task force of 7.
Great.
If I may, through the chair to council.
Mr. Derricott?
Thank you. I think what the processes would take, assuming council were to support this, is that administration would bring back a terms of reference for council to consider formally. And I think at that stage, questions about membership or the kind of specifics, council would have a chance to work through those in due course as part of that, as there will need to be a follow-up action to build this out procedurally as well.
Okay, I was just confused. This is, again, seems to be an evolving process, because the recommended action is that we would direct the creation of this task force. Should we amend it that the terms of reference comes back to council?
Thank you. I don't believe that would be necessary. The act of creating the task force would be done through creation of a terms of reference. That's how administration would action this particular item.
Okay, so when would we see the terms of reference come back to council?
That actually, if I may, again, through the chair, would be one of my suggestions, is to consider a time frame that Councillor Reid may consider acceptable to this process. I would suggest likely early fall would be a reasonable timeline to consider as part of that. Again, off the top of my head, typically just to ensure that we have time to build that into the work processes of the affected teams.
I just always like to make sure we've got a timeline here, and the recommended action is a little bit vague for me. Would you accept a friendly amendment that council directed men to establish your task force and administration to return by October with with a rollout strategy?
Sure, that is a good friend amendment. I'd be happy to accept that.
October, terms of reference be presented to council by October?
Yeah, by end of September, October 1, however you want to word it.
Okay, I think that's been accepted as a friendly. I think everyone's nodding around, so, yep. Okay, you're good?
I'm good, yep.
Okay.
That's where we're at with the motion. I appreciate it.
Councillor Flowers?
Yes, I'm definitely in favor of moving in this direction. I think it's an important thing to do, but I wasn't sure about the structure of it either. I would like to see a SEAC member on there. And the staff wouldn't really be a member of the task force, they'd be support too, or doing the legwork. And do we have the competent staff in that area that we need to move this forward, or would we need to look for new staff?
I think we're getting into the weeds of what the terms of reference would come back, and then I think we can have that whole debate at that end. And administration, the way I see this unfolding, on October 1st-ish, we see draft terms of reference. That's administration's kick at this can, and then we have our own at that point and manipulate it from there. Yeah.
Yes, correct. I think that if you're generally supportive of this action, I think you would approve it, and then the nuts and bolts of it would come back through that process whereby you would be able to give feedback, or we could identify any potential concerns or issues that would need to be resolved to support this work.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I had was, would there be room for public engagement to try to find out other ideas of where this committee could go, or topics that could be included other than what we've dreamt up?
I would suggest, if I may again through the chair, that would be work that the committee would undertake as to how they would want to build out their work plan and ensure that they are addressing the needs of our community.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Federico.
I just wanted to make sure that we were kind of following the guidelines of what our procedure bylaw should be, that Councillor Reid puts it on the table, that if there's a friendly suggestion perhaps, but we shouldn't really be debating it tonight. We should be all taking this away and thinking about it and coming back at the meeting in a couple of weeks to actually critique or vote forward or whatever that looks like, but I don't think it should be happening tonight.
Yeah, I think we are procedurally on side tonight, so we're following our procedural bylaw. Just look to the ledge team for a thumbs up.
We are following our procedure based on it's been set in precedent the last year and a half or so for how we've handled all of the notice of motions, and as well it'll be addressed in the new procedural bylaw that's coming forward at the COW meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Federico.
Let's speak against our actual procedure bylaw. Just a question. Isn't that kind of against what is actually voted in policy as of right now? I mean, we can't look at what we've been doing for the last year and a half. We've actually been against the procedure bylaw, which I think a lot of us identified previously. Just I want to make sure that we're following the actual bylaw that we have in place, and the one that's coming forward will come forward for official vote, I would assume.
Happy to address that through the chair to Councillor Federico. Yes, I think you're appropriately identifying that there has been a lack of procedural clarity in notice of motions. Administration in conjunction working with council to review our procedural bylaw, that was one of the key focuses, was to ensure that we have procedural clarity on how notice of motions will function, and ultimately will be at the discretion of council as they review and adopt a new procedural bylaw.
Councillor McFadden.
And it's unfortunate that I support this and where we're going, but I do agree with Councillor Federico. I mean, we've been talking about the need to follow our own bylaws and procedural bylaws, and this is probably out of sync because the procedural bylaw, we were thinking there'd probably be a decision on that made at the last council meeting. But yes, if we're not going to have a procedural bylaw, we should follow our own rules around this. And I would certainly say in the last few years, we haven't been consistent, so to saying that we're just following something we've been doing, for me isn't accurate. This looks to be a different process whereby the whole decision is showing up in the one meeting. Councillor Reid, I certainly support this, but would you be open to just deferring the final decision on this to the next meeting so that we're following our existing, what's written down in our current procedural bylaw, and then vote on it formally at the next meeting? I'm more than glad to do that. I just would think we should follow our own processes.
I just want to clarify with administration that we are following our procedural bylaw by dealing with this tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, again, as a point of clarity, that there has been, even in my time here now, just over 3 years, a number of different procedures followed with regards to notice of motion. And so it was about a year and a half ago where in an effort to try to clarify that process. We settled on a certain process that does not line specifically with what is written in our procedural bylaw, so I want to be clear about that. I think that the effort obviously has been made to ensure that the procedural work is done to correct that with the procedural bylaw update that has been in front of council. It is always at council's discretion as to how they would like to handle this. Procedurally, that piece is now in front of council to support this or not. You could support it or choose not to support it on procedural grounds. That's always an option that an individual member of council has. So just again, to sum that up, no, this is not specifically aligned with how a procedural bylaw is written. That the notice of motion process has been seen a number of variations over the last few years, none of which were perfectly in line with how the procedural bylaw was written. And so in an attempt to introduce consistency, there was a process laid out, which also is reflected in the procedural bylaw update that is in front of council.
Just for clarity, the last 5 notices of motion are on the sheet on the back. Did we follow this process for those 5?
Through the chair, yes, that this current process was followed for those last 5. The other option, if council wishes to adhere to the way that the procedural bylaw is currently written, you do always have the opportunity to pass a motion by 2/3 majority to debate it this evening, if you're wanting to follow your current procedural bylaw to the letter. But once again, the procedural bylaw is council's, and it's council's decision on how you conduct yourselves during the course of your meeting.
I just question, I had a notice of motion, we followed this process through, Councillor Wilson had one, we followed this through, Councillor Fedayko had one, we followed this through, Councillor McFadden, yours, and Councillor Nagel. So, but again, I mean, I don't know if we want to get caught up in, Councillor McFadden, your light's still on.
Yeah, this is not how, I mean, I don't know what backwork Councillor Reed did, but this is not how mine went through. So to say we've consistently done this model isn't accurate. But at the end of the day, I really support where Councillor Reed is going, and procedurally, we've got to fix that, we know that. So if we can follow Ms. Lowe's advice, and I'll certainly move that whatever we need to do to get a 2/3 majority to advance this decision tonight, that we do so. I'll be more than glad to support it in that way. I want to find a way to support it, but I think it's very important that we be seen to follow our own processes.
Okay, are you making a motion to?
So I'm amending that additional mention. Yes.
So
I don't know where we're at on this.
It would be a separate motion to seek 2/3 majority to proceed with the motion this evening, so.
Yes.
So motion to seek 2/3.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Everybody's clear on that? Councillor Fedayko?
Yes, and I wanted to say, it's not that I'm not in support of Councillor Reed, I am. I just want us to follow the right process of what we should be, and to be clear, mine was, the whistleblower was not. I laid it on the floor and I asked for a 2-week recess, so I just don't want it to be assumed that I followed suit with everybody else, because I didn't. I was very clear in what I wanted, and I wanted to follow that procedure bylaw, so.
Okay, my mistake if that's what happened. Okay, motion on the floor for 2/3 majority to proceed with the notice of motion tonight. Everybody's clear on the question? All those in favor? That carries. We have 2/3. All right. Councillor Reed, your motion's back on the floor with a friendly amendment for October 1st terms of reference. Come back. Any more discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor of that motion? That carries. Excellent. All right. Thank you, Councillor Reed. Mayor's report, brief one. I just wanted to advise council, following our decision last meeting to, with the Spray Lakes and the RFP process, that Mr. Derricott and I met with the leadership team of Spray Lakes. We met with the, well, as part of the Parks and Rec Committee, I made presentation there. We had another meeting with the Spray Lakes stakeholders on, I believe that was an evening, and also met with the, there was an opportunity for all staff. So I just wanted to close a loop that council knew that all of those meetings occurred. Attended the St. Timothy grad. It was good to see, I think, 45 grads or 54. It was it's those two numbers in one order or the other. Staff appreciation event, kudos to the team that put that together. I think it's the communications staff. Seemed to be well attended. Also, I think more attendance than last year, and smiles on everyone's face. So that's off to that. Greystone Place groundbreaking. It was interesting to see the plans that we've all been approving over the last few years actually come to fruition with groundbreaking, and the commercial piece that's happening there. The landowner there had announced a few different businesses coming. There'll be a spa, daycare, and a whole bunch of other amenities in that two-story building right next to the pond section of Greystone. So welcome to those new businesses that are choosing to invest in Cochrane. You may have read this in the news, but the RCMP across Alberta are looking to start to use drones in their police work. It's similar to what the city police have with Hawks. It would just be on a obviously much smaller version for them to deploy a drone out from wherever they have it to surveil, to apprehend, to get eyes on, to go into situations where maybe it would be unsafe for a person to go. And our detachment is looking to be a part of that rollout across the province. So it's been done in other provinces already. I think Saskatchewan was the first. Seniors Week was FCSS put on a really good Seniors Week. Lots of places to go. Stockman's had are you speaking to that, Councillor Flower? The Stockmans did a Roland Gissing presentation here at the Ranch House. It was well attended. And I had the opportunity with Councillor Flowers to serve lunch to Big Hill Lodge. They really enjoyed the milkshakes that we handed out and spilled all over the floor. CMRB Land Use and Servicing Committee, the only, I think, major thing I would bring to council's attention is the environmentally sensitive area dashboard, which is a dashboard put together from all the communities across the CMRB identifying environmentally sensitive areas. The goal is to put that on a dashboard that anyone could have access to that. The CMRB executive or the administration got a grant from the Alberta Real Estate Foundation to support most of the cost of that. So that's moving ahead faster than what we thought. And then finally, FCM this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, had the opportunity to have lunch with EMRB and CMRB together. It's the first time we've got the two boards together to do a little networking, and we agreed that we should combine our efforts more often to lobby the province for like initiatives that and the growth around the Edmonton region is similar to the Calgary, and so our issues are the same, and why wouldn't we team up on those efforts? And I just wanted to address the City of Calgary water situation that was prevalent throughout the conference, which was in Calgary. And Mayor Gondek and what their team and their administration are dealing with, eerily similar to what we had experienced here. I did reach out to Mayor Gondek. I talked to her, offered our support, whether they needed it or not, just we're here for them. It's affecting Edmonton, or Airdrie, Strathmore, Chestermere also get their water from Calgary. So it's not just a Calgary problem, it's a regional problem. But just the way that it highlighted for me that our community really dealt with our situation in a really professional way. And a lot of the ways that Calgary are dealing with theirs seemed to fall right in line with what we did. They have a 2-meter line, ours was much smaller than that, but relatively speaking, our line is the same size going across our community as the one going across theirs. So anyways, just, and I think our rec facility did reach out to and made an effort to the public that if people from Calgary wanted to come and shower here like the YMCA did in our situation, that we've reciprocated with that. So anyways, I did bring back an affordable housing grant opportunity, so I'll pass this along to the CSHO. Had a good chat with a person on the trade floor, and she's going to email me about the exact opportunity there. And then one highlight that Mr. Derricott and I both appreciated was the former mayor of Bristol was one of the keynote speakers from the UK. And the takeaway for me was I've been thinking that we've been in this growth pressure problem issue as a province or as a region or as a community in isolation. And what he shared was that everything he's seeing happening here was happening in the UK. And that the pressures they're having to keep up and fund growth and fund infrastructure ahead of population expansions. It was very interesting to hear the parallels that are happening in the UK versus here. And I don't know why, it just took some comfort in knowing that it's not just us. So he was an interesting speaker. And I would just highlight to council we did have the South Bow discussion around the 3 parcels and the density and the turning down the application for South Bow with the parcel A, B, and C. We have made an effort to, so if it's not that, then what is it? And we've heard from our community about what they don't want there, and council spoke with all your perspectives on that. There is a meeting this weekend on Saturday to tour the area, to see the site, to have some feedback from council to Qualico, who are now looking to, well, if it's not that, then what? And part of the issue there, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Qualico or trying to get anything there over one thing or another, just that it's fresh on our minds, and they have now followed a process and been denied, and then for them to now follow what council put on the floor is contrary to our policy. So they're looking for some direction on what it is that this group wants to see. So I think that would be a very good meeting to attend, to get some back and forth before they do whatever they're going to do, and we vote however we're going to vote on that. But just wanted to make that in case you missed it in your invite box. And that is my report for the couple of weeks we've had. Councillor McFadden.
Yes, thank you very much. Just 2 highlights, I think, just from the committees that I work with. As Mayor Janang identified, the Parks and Recreation Committee met at the end of last month, and the mayor was good enough to give a presentation on the rec center RFP process. The group had lots of questions, and 2 which I wanted to bring back to our group. They had some good questions around what the governance system is going to look like, that I think perhaps we need to get some clear definitions on. And then secondly, there was some good discussion around whether there'd be an opportunity for that group to be able to provide a public member into the RFP selection process. Just with a couple of members on the committee having, extensive decades of experience in this type of piece, they did provide some good feedback on kind of key learnings in their experiences around correct drafting of RFPs and those type of things. So it was certainly an area that interested me, the opportunity to perhaps allow public members or the public in some way to participate in that selection process. But I did just want to bring that forward as an idea that was coming from the Parks and Recreation Committee. And then my second report is just updated work from Cochrane Tourism. They want to share they have a new event there in the works, partnering with 8 other organizations: Lion, Case, Stockman's, I'm going to say it wrong again, the Wax and Itchinabe Tea, the Granville Ranch Park Foundation, CHAPS, Route 22, and the Cochrane Public Library. And they're going to be launching a Living History Festival over the September long weekend. And the idea is to integrate with the existing events, such as the Rodeo Powwow and Parade, while activating other areas of Cochrane, especially downtown core, with the idea to enhance the overall economic impact of the weekend. Successful completion of this event is actually going to allow the CTA to apply for some federal funding in year 2 to work towards creating another signature event weekend for Cochrane. So they just wanted to share that. And then Tourism Community Development. The organization is hosting its first Explore Cochrane Connects event on June 19th, which is aimed at strengthening relationships within the tourism community and providing education. It's going to focus on grant funding from Travel Alberta and have a panel of different applicants and reps. And then the next event is going to take place on World Tourism Day, which is apparently September 27th. And we'll have a discussion about how tourism is a force for good. And then finally, they are making a marketing adjustment. So following some recommendation of the Travel Alberta Tourism Development Zone Discovery Report, so that's a short title, the CTA is going to adjust its digital marketing campaign to target long-haul and international guests. And their understanding is that these visitors are going to significantly boost the local economy through increased spending on hotels, retail, food and beverage, and tourism businesses. So a big shout out to that group that is continues to deliver great work for the town of Cochrane. Thank you very much.
All right, Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to mention two events. One was just to echo the mayor's comment about the staff appreciation event, which was extremely well done. I had heard from several staff members that they really appreciated the members of council who were able to attend that event, and in recognition of the great efforts that they do in terms of our community. And so I think our presence there was recognized and appreciated. I wanted to point out the event on Friday, June the 21st, from 4 to 7 at the station. There are 3 events collating itself there. The one that I spoke of 2 weeks ago was put on by FCSS, and that's called Give a Little Love. It's a United Way fundraiser. All the money that's raised at that event will stay locally, and we're grateful to Councillor Wilson McFadden, who volunteered in the dunk tank, in addition to other members of our community. And I appreciate that. The other 2 events, I'll let Councillor Flowers speak to one of them, but Connect with Cochrane, that will be the opportunity for members of the community to engage with town staff about advocacy efforts, construction projects. I suspect you're going to hear a lot about Center Street on that occasion if we haven't got much progress by then, including the Ranch House and Glenbow pathway improvements and water conservation programs. So just a heads up there, Drew. And I'll leave the third event to Councillor Flowers. The third event is to celebrate the National Indigenous Peoples Day. So there'll be, again, 3 things happening at the same time. Friday, June the 1st, you want to put that on your calendar and be there from 4 to 7.
21st?
21st.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Federico?
I only wanted to give a shout out to 2 different groups that I was able to attend their events that have nothing to do with council committees. The Filipino community, first of all, had their annual Heritage Celebration Day or month, whenever they do. I've got to tell you, I've been able to attend over the past many years, and what a great, gracious group who not only volunteer to so many different events in our community, but they put on one heck of a celebration day between food, dancing, music. It was too bad it was a bit blustery, and I believe Councillor Flowers stepped in the morning to induct some of their people in. I wasn't unfortunately able to attend in the morning, but I did attend in the afternoon for a brief amount of time, as well as the Senior for Kids Society. So they were here not that long ago, but they had their annual volunteer appreciation event, and were some of those volunteers that eventually retired after being in the schools for 19 years. And so it's pretty amazing to see people who give up their time every week to go and volunteer with their youth. And so yeah, both of those were fantastic to be able to attend. And other than that, I think that is about it.
All right, thank you. Councillor Flowers?
Yes, the Filipino Heritage Celebration was amazing, and the station is a great place to have these kind of events. Using the grass area and the washrooms and everything, it worked out really well. But Councillor Federico's right, they really know how to put on a celebration, and I brought greetings on behalf of the town and was able to do the induction ceremony, and they were really emotional about their time here, and they love Cochrane, and they really knew how to put on a celebration. I also went to the FCM conference for 3 days of it, and there was 3,100 people there from all across Canada. I guess it's the biggest conference they've ever had. So it was well attended, lots of good topics. It's just, I felt like a country bumpkin being out of Cochrane and in the downtown Calgary. But I met lots of nice people, and it was time well spent. They have the same problems we have all across Canada too. Affordable housing was talked about at length, and people were supportive of each other, and we have to stick together. It's hard work.
Okay. We have no in camera. We have only but adjournment. Councillor Nagel, if you okay, if we terminate this meeting?